Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Grootniblink. I'm the creator of Apples and Ginos, originator of the Zero-G Draft Strategy. And in this podcast, I have a new guest on to talk about some fun season-long prop bets that are out there. Let's get it. All right, welcome in, everybody. My guest today is Ryan Brudner, R33 in the Apples and Ginos Discord, if you're in there, or Top Cheddar Fantasy on Twitter. Ryan was one of the writers for the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Draft Guide, which you can still get over at the Apples and Ginos Patreon in the shop there, $7.99. Ryan and a bunch of other great writers put together some just terrific stuff. 141 pages, 32 NHL team previews. Ryan did some betting talk in that guide as well. Put together a really nice article for you there, digging into a little bit more of the specifics of some of the stuff that we'll be talking about today. So definitely you will want to check that out if this betting episode kind of wets your whistle at all. Ryan's just a really sharp guy. I've met him. He's been honing his game a little bit more on the betting side of fantasy, but he also gets into our best ball streets and takes a lot of Apples and Ginos Discord members' money in those streets as well. So welcome, Ryan. How are you doing tonight?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to get in and talking about hockey betting. I think all summer, just up to this point, we're doing projections. I do my own projections. I'm sure you've put in many hours in that. And as soon as some lines start to drop, you get a little excited. You're like, oh, okay, this line is a little low. I wanna play some money here. And so I've been having a great time looking at all these NHL lines that are coming out.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I really have not looked into it myself much. I've always had interest just because how can you not? You're thinking about this kind of stuff all off season. I'm spending hours and hours doing projections, and then I do see some lines that pop up here and there. People post them or whatever, and I'm like, man, that seems kind of ridiculous compared to what I'm projecting this guy for. So in preparation for this episode, I spent far too long digging into every single line that's out there. It felt like. But we have a whole bunch of picks that we're going to go through. Ryan's got a pick. I've got a pick kind of in a whole bunch of different categories that you can place bets on. We're going to have a really fun time, but I want to let the people get to know you a little bit better, Ryan. So let's just kind of go through a few questions. First off, how did you get into betting in the first place?
Yeah. So I've been into fantasy hockey for as long as I can remember, through high school even, and found a lot of success with that. I get really into it, like too much, and get really into the stats.
Can't imagine what that's like.
Yeah, and it turns into some fantasy championships here and there. So, yeah, with betting, I was kind of intrigued as to really like, can I take success in fantasy hockey and bring it to the betting world, especially after like playing some daily fantasy hockey, and then looking at certain props in certain games, and you can just kind of explore a little bit. So I did some exploring, and over the last 3 years, I've been really betting on hockey quite a bit.
Nice. So how did last year go for you? Did you enjoy your time, or did you have to kind of recalibrate after the year?
Yeah. So I would say 3 years ago when I first started doing this, I wasn't really tracking much, and if you asked me, what was your profit or what was your loss, I wouldn't have been able to tell you. I was just having fun with it. I didn't lose a whole bunch of money. I didn't gain a whole bunch of money, and I wasn't putting a lot on the line. But 2 years ago, I was like, okay, let's track every bet I make, and we can really see if I'm onto something or if I'm like just wasting a bunch of money and having fun doing it. So keeping bets small. I was tracking everything, but really getting into it. And the last 2 years, both were profitable. Last year specifically, I can tell you that each bet returned 9% of what I put in. So if I bet $1 on something, on average, I would be winning 9 cents profit on that.
Nice.
Where sometimes you lose, sometimes you win, but if you track it over the long run and really the long run, that's when you can know if you're onto something.
Nice. Yeah, I think you should be pretty happy with 9% going up against the books for sure. So one thing that I did want to ask you is how much, when you do the betting, how much do you do on the season long versus the in season? Do you think one is like a softer market than the other? The lines are softer in season or season long. I'm curious how you kind of divide those two things up.
Yeah, I like to separate them fully and create separate bankrolls for them because, first of all, any season long bet you're doing, that money is locked up for 8 or 9 months. So even if you create a bankroll and then you bet it all on the season longs, it's like, oh, yeah, it's all locked
Yeah.
up. I can't really work with anything in season. So I like to separate the two. In terms of the book's lines, if you're looking at those season long lines right when they come out, some of them came out mid August, some of them early August, some of them just in September.
Yeah.
But the early ones, I would say a lot of them were easy to take advantage of, and I've seen a lot of movement in a lot of these over unders and a lot of these bets for season longs. Whereas in season play, you can do that a little bit where like right when a line comes out the night before, it might be too good to be true, and then by the next morning they've realized and they've tightened stuff up, and
Right.
I find they're a lot sharper in season.
That makes
Yeah.
sense to me. Yeah. So when you do get to the in-season stuff, are you like sitting there grinding every single day, like finding the best props every single day? Or is it more like on heavier slates that you think like there's obviously more action on heavier slates, but yeah, I'm just curious how much of your day-to-day you're actually into the weeds in this.
Yeah, and it's more of a who I am. I'm super into looking at all the stats, so I really can't resist. Usually, if there's a hockey game on, I'll look at all the stats. I'll go through my process, and then I'll look at the lines and kind of decide, okay, maybe there's a bet or two I feel good about, or maybe there's not. On those off nights where there's only one or two games, maybe I'm not placing any bets. But if on those heavy nights, there's definitely a few bets going down.
Nice. All right. So we are going to get into yeah, our picks. Ryan, I think you mentioned that these are ones that you've actually already put something down on. I have made the commitment. I am going to put something down. It's not going to be a big amount of money for sure for me, but I am going to put something down on everything that I talk about for my picks tonight. And I will track it and see if I do anything at all at the end of the season with these ones. Before we get started, though, I do want to do a little bit of a standard disclaimer. Like, this is not betting advice. We're not telling you this is absolutely, you know, money to be made here. This is what we think. And we've decided, with our own bankrolls, what we're comfortable with losing. Whatever you bet, you should be comfortable with losing. It's a pretty standard line to tell everybody who's thinking about doing this, but it is kind of fun to have this. I think it is yeah, just extra fun basically alongside fantasy. It's stuff that I already have, a lot of confidence in different lines and different players and their outcomes. And so yeah, to actually put something on it and have it kind of tracked externally and maybe win a little bit of money if everything goes my way. I think that's just kind of fun. So yeah, don't put anything out there that you can't afford to lose. But yeah, hopefully this is fun for you as it was for me when I was first going through everything, and I'm excited to see if I can make anything come of my picks. Some of them are a bit spicy, Ryan, so you might have to hold me back on a few, but let's get into it here. So first off, this is team totals. Basically, this is just total team points at the end of the season. There's a line, and you can choose over or under that line. Ryan, why don't you tell us about your pick?
Yeah, so I really like the Dallas Stars at this line of 102.5. I'm taking the over. I find that point projection models, whether it be models from the books or public models that you can find people releasing their team projections, they tend to center, and some most times player projections too. They center around the median range of outcomes.
Hmm.
So like the worst team, that over under line is not going to be under like 65, 66 points, but the worst teams tend to be really bad, and I believe San Jose finished. I don't have it on me, but I think it was around 52 points, way below the line of 66 and a half. And on that point, the top teams also are super good, and they'll finish way above their median range of outcomes. So I see Dallas to stay a top team. They were 1 point back of the President's Trophy last year. They were fourth in the league in Corsi percentage, expected goals percentage, and they actually had a higher goals against versus their expected goals against. So their goaltenders weren't that great last year. I
Yeah.
think that Ottinger, if he can play to his potential, this team could finish with the lowest goals against the league. And I just think they're going to be um, a top team, probably division winner, and likely around the 109, 110 point range.
Yeah. I do like this one a fair bit. Yeah, if you look back, the Stars 113 points last year. I don't think they got worse this offseason. Pavelski gone there, obviously, but Wyatt Johnson, an ascending star in the league. Maverick Bourque won the AHL MVP last year. He's going to come up this year. Their top nine is as good as anybody around the league. They have Thomas Harley and Miro Heiskanen, both legitimate top pairing defensemen who can log insane minutes. Yeah, I think I like that one. It's a pretty good one in my books too. My pick was the Detroit Red Wings under 90.5. I don't know, honestly, if this is really that spicy. The Red Wings were basically at this line last year. They finished with 91 points last year, but I did talk about it when we went through our projection series, me and Blake. I think the Red Wings probably overperformed a bit last year. They had some metrics that were a little bit on the unsustainable side of things, and they have an absolute mess in goal, which could it's more likely to go sideways than it's likely to improve things significantly. There, in my opinion, this team is a Dylan Larkin injury away from being a bottom five team in the league, in my opinion. And so I've talked some Yang on the Wings this offseason, and so here I'm gonna back that up with a bet against them. How do you feel about this line, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. It makes sense to me. I think I'm not going to touch it as, they could end up with 91 again and be like a
Yeah.
mediocre team who misses the playoffs by a few points. But but I like it. It makes sense.
Yeah, the other part that I'm thinking about too is there's been a lot of talk about the Sabres are getting better this offseason, the Senators are getting better this offseason, the Canadians are getting better this offseason. So somebody in that division has to be getting worse if everybody's getting better. And I think it's most likely to be the Red Wings. All right, let's keep rolling. Let's talk about season leaders. So on this one, you can find on a few books where they'll just have basically who's projected, who you want to pick to lead the NHL in a stat category. So Ryan, take us through your pick.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a fun pick. At plus 310, it's plus money. It's unlikely to happen, but if anyone's going to do it, Nathan MacKinnon is going to lead the leagues in shots on goal. He had 412 last year, led the league, and Pasternak was close, Matthews was close, but MacKinnon was just so consistent all season long. Whereas Pasternak actually, he decreased his shot rates a little bit as the season went on.
Mm-hmm.
Last year I had a bet on MacKinnon to get over 400 shots and Pasternak to get over 400 shots, and I was really rooting for Pasternak in those last
Yeah.
few games, and he put up some 2-shot games, some 3-shot games, and it didn't happen for Pasta. So as long as MacKinnon doesn't get injured and miss a substantial amount of games, like he should hit this. So plus 310, if this was 50-50, McKinnon can get injured and it won't happen. But
Right.
at plus 310, I'm happy to take this.
Yeah, maybe we should take a second for the people who aren't up on betting terms. Can you let the people know what that means, the plus 310 that you're referring to there?
Yeah. So I speak in American odds. I just feel like a lot of bet gambling people do, and decimal might be better, but we're going with this. So plus 310. If there's a plus symbol, it means if you put down $1, or if you put down $100, that's the amount you're going to win. So if you put down $100, you're going to win 310 in profit. Whereas if there's a minus, that's the amount you need to bet to win $100 in profit. And all of these coincide with implied probabilities of occurring. So plus 100 means there's 50-50. That's what the books are saying. It's a 50-50 chance. So plus 310, that coincides to an implied probability of 24.4%. So I personally think there's a higher likelihood than 24% of McKinnon leading the league in shots. So I'm taking this bet.
Yep. Awesome. So my pick here was Brock Faber to lead the league in average time on ice. This bet is at plus 1,200, so obviously big odds there. But yeah, I think you look at the Wild, they don't have anybody to play behind, what's probably the top pair there with Faber and Spurgeon. They have Brodin, who's aging. They have Jacob Middleton, who played top 4 minutes for them for a lot of last year. I just don't see a scenario in which they don't lean on Brock Faber for an absolute boatload of minutes once again this year. And if you look at it, what would really send him over the top is if he gets the power play. If he gets the power play for pretty much the entire season, then that's a little bit of extra boost, and I think that might actually take him over the top. There are a few other lines around this, like there's definitely not a consensus player who everybody's betting to be the average time on ice leader. So there are a bunch of plus money bets around the average time on ice leader line, but I kind of like this Brock Faber one. It's pretty big money, and I think he's got just about as good a chance as anybody to lead the league next year.
Yeah, you said it well. They're all unlikely to happen. They're all plus money. I gotta say I don't love this pick just because I think, especially with Spurgeon back, if Spurgeon can stay healthy, Spurgeon might take a lot of the penalty kill from Faber, where Faber had a lot of minutes on the penalty kill, he had a lot of minutes on the power play, a lot of minutes at even strength. Near the end of the season last year, Faber was actually getting less even strength minutes than he was. Zach Bogosian weirdly had a huge bump in even strength minutes. So I think they might want to, I think Faber will get power play 1 for sure, but they might protect him a little bit and keep him on the bench for more penalty kill minutes, and that might limit this upside. But it's plus 1,200. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's keep rolling. Let's talk about win totals. So this is goalies. Yeah, I don't want to be betting on goalies personally. This is not my favorite task to try to find a goalie line that I was super into. But why don't you go ahead with your line first here, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, as you did, you could bet on the under for goalies, which is 0G. That's 0G.
Yeah, betting the under is 0G.
Yeah. So I'm taking the over on Linus Ullmark at 25.5 wins. He's with Ottawa now, and Ottawa has had terrible goaltending. Last year they were the worst in the league in terms of goals saved above expected. If they had just average goaltending, 0 goals saved above expected, they would have let in 26 less goals, making their goal differential close to 0, and that would have resulted in a few more wins for them.
Yep.
Anton Forsberg last year, he was not good, but he was able to pick up a win every other game for them, so he got 15 wins in 30 games. Korpisalo was arguably the worst goalie in the league, and he was still able to get 21 wins. So I'm betting on Ullmark, who's been one of the few goaltenders who's actually been consistent the last few years. And he's near the top in goals saved above expected each year. as unreliable as goalies are, if you look at Ullmark's last 5 years, he's finished with a save percentage of 915 or better. And yeah, so I just think he's going to be serviceable. Even if he's average, I think he's able to hit this win mark. And I think Linus Ullmark will be above average for the Sens.
Yeah, I think it's a good line. I if I was gonna go over or under, I would definitely go over on it. Uh, I will say I'm always scared when goalies go to new places. They have a new goalie coach. Just seen so many times where a goalie goes to a new place and at least the first season is pretty terrible. And yeah, lots of weird stuff can happen in the first season. Coaching change in Ottawa, we think that's probably a good thing because DJ Smith was probably not a great coach overall. But yeah, there's just a lot of variables out there for Ottawa. So that's why that would give me pause. I mean, like I said, I don't want to be betting on goalies to begin with, but yeah, I think I would take the over if I had to choose between the over and the under on this. But I don't like situations that are unsettled like this. It does feel like you're getting a bit of a discount because of that nature of the situation where it is his first time there. But definitely going from Boston, which is possibly the best place to play goalie in the entire league, to Ottawa, which at least last year was probably one of the worst. Hopefully it's better this year and he's able to hit it. But yeah, definitely some pause in my mind around just Ottawa in general and what that goaltending situation might shake out to be this year. My pick
Yeah,
was,
I do
yeah,
I do
go
want to
back.
just touch on that. Ottawa,
Sure.
I gotta say, worst place for goaltending last year. I think that was because of the goaltenders and not because of the
Yeah.
defensive play. They were like a middle team in expected goals against, Corsi against, and I actually have an interesting stat. If Ottawa had a save percentage of 915 last season, which Allmark has hit each of the last 5 years, they would have saved 74 more goals than they let in last year. So I'm not saying Allmark will hit
Right.
915 save percentage, but he's going to be a much better option for them.
For sure. Yeah, he absolutely should be. My pick here, I picked Joseph Wool under 27.5. To me, this is kind of like you've got almost, it feels like you got to hit a parlay to get Wool over 27.5. First off, he kind of has to be the 1A. He has to get more than half of the work on the season. And he also has to stay healthy, which is not something he's been able to do. And it feels like it's been a lot of recurring things, lower body things, all somewhat tied together that he's struggled with. I know that the Leafs organization really likes Joseph Woll and they think he can be like a legitimate starting level goaltender, at least a 1A in the NHL. So there is that part of it, but they did go out and get Anthony Stolarz and give him a nice little deal to at least be a 1B. I think they're probably going to split this right down the middle to start things out and try to keep both guys fresh. If one significantly outplays the other, yeah, they'll probably go with the hot hand a little bit more. But I think you got to kind of hit two legs on Joseph Woll to get him over this. He's got to play more than half the games because at 41 games, is he really going to go 28 wins or more? That's a really good line from him if he's going to do that. And so you're hoping, almost basically banking on him getting at least 45, probably closer to 50 starts or 50 games played at least. And then you're also banking on him staying healthy for the whole year. And I'm just not comfortable doing that. So that's my pick on the under. What do you think of that one, Ryan?
Yeah, I really like that one. You said it well, how you're parlaying his health and an abundance of starts that this line just is 50-50 here, so like you can't take this over. And I do really like Stolarz as a 0G candidate. If he can get one start a week, he can be a league winner, I think, in fantasy.
Yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. Like, yeah, just thinking about the fantasy side of it. I think it's pretty clear that the Leafs tried to address the defense this year. It'll be a focus for the whole team for sure, trying to not be as bad as they were at times throughout Keefe's tenure on the back end. So it could end up being one of the best situations for a goaltender that is out there. It's just a matter of, will one of those two guys actually grab the reins and be reliable enough where you're not getting goose egged by them in a week, because it's a week that Toronto only plays 3 games and the other guy starts 3 in a row and plays really well. And yeah, it's gonna be interesting trying to figure out who's gonna be starting any given game there, I think, in the early going at least. All right, next up we have goal and point over under. So we both picked 5 here. So Ryan, why don't you take it here with your first 3 picks?
Yeah, for sure. So first, I got Artemi Panarin to get over 30 goals. I placed this bet a while back. As soon as the lines came out, I see 30.5 goals, looked into it. I'm like, okay, this is going to change. I think this line is still around right now on BetMGM, and I think it shouldn't be. He had 49 last year. You know, he woke up, chose violence, started shooting the puck way more than in his entire career. And he also had a career high shooting percentage, so I could see regression incoming for sure. But his shots per 60, they actually came down. His shots per 60 came down in the second half of next season, which is another concerning sign. But if you look at his shot attempts per 60, those went up. So he was just missing the net more often, but he was still firing the puck. He was just missing. So I am expecting Panarin to continue his new self, his shooting self, and be a shooter. I think his shooting percentage will come down a bit. I think if he's really snake bitten and he matches his career low shooting percentage of 12%, he should still get over 30.5 goals. I have him projected personally for 40, shooting 14%. And he's also been pretty healthy, you know, fingers crossed. He's played 82 games in each of the last 2 seasons, and he plays a low injury risk style of hockey. So anytime you're taking the over, you got to think about injuries a little bit, unfortunately, and I think he's a low risk player.
Yeah, I like that one. I've got Panarin for 38.7 goals in my projections. So yeah, at 30.5, that does feel pretty good. Every other book is at 35.5, according to what I put down. So it feels like it's got to be only a matter of time before MGM figures that one out. So yeah, I like getting in on that one before it goes away, probably.
Yeah, MGM tends to be slower, I think. Today, they didn't really react to Luke Hughes' news, and his point line was way too high. So I don't know if that'll be the case by the time this podcast comes out, but
Yeah,
they were a little slow.
nice. All right, get us
Yeah.
your second there.
Yeah, so JJ Peterka, I love this guy this season. He really clicked with Tage Thompson and Alex Tuck last year in the second half of the season. He saw a full 3 minutes extra of time on ice in the final quarter of the season, and his shots per 60 stayed the same. So his shots per game just went way up. I do think they found a nice trio together, and that will continue, and he'll be on the top line, top power play. And I think this over-under line of 25 goals, 25 and a half, it's a little conservative, accounting for too much of his middle six role that he started last year. He was playing in the middle six last year. I think if he's a top 6 forward this year, he'll easily clear 26 goals. I personally have him projected close to 18 minutes a night with a 12.8% shooting percentage, and that came out to 33 goals for me.
Nice. I've gone for 26.7, so I'm a little lighter there. I have him at 11% shooting percentage. Yeah, I am regressing him a little bit back, because to me that has been what Peterka has shown a little bit more throughout his career, even going back to before he made it to the NHL. It could very well be that what we saw last year was just him taking a step, and he's going to play with better players and he's going to convert more. I'm not discounting that possibility, but for me, this one's just a little too close to my base projection. I think I'd steer clear of this one personally.
Yeah, fair. Next up, I have Yegor Sharangovich. He's got the same line as Peterka. This one I don't love as much as Peterka, but I do still like it a lot. He should regress from last year. He had a career high shooting percentage at 17%. He was given such a large role with more ice time down the stretch last season. In the first quarter of last season, his ice time was only 14 minutes a night. And in the latter three quarters, this was 18 minutes a night. So he really solidified a big role in the team, earned a new contract. And I think that this bigger role will counteract the regression that will come with his shooting percentage. I do also think this bet relies on him securing a power play one role and being on it all season. Last season, he was 25th in the league in shot attempts per 60 on the power play, so much higher than his even strength shooting. And he's a shooter on the power play, and that's where I see him having a good chunk of his goals. I have him personally projected for 29 goals, 9 on the power play, shooting still a pretty high shooting percentage of 13.8%. So I think this one is not I don't love it as much as Peterka, but I still think he's going to clear 26 goals.
Yep. I have him for 27.7, 13.9% shooting percentage, 18 minutes a night. So I think we see the role there pretty similarly. I have him for 2 minutes 45 seconds on the power play, so I did not give him quite the full three plus minutes full power play all season long. I wasn't quite confident enough to give him that, just because I think there are potentially a few other guys that they could rotate in there. But if I put a gun to my head, who's going to be on the top power play for the vast majority of the season, for sure Sharangovich is on there. In my mind, I think that's probably what he does best, and probably what they're most interested in having him do on this team next year. So I think I'd be definitely much more surprised than not for him to miss this over personally. All right, next up, Brock Faber.
Yeah, you may not like this one, but this so this line was just a little different from all the other books that had Brock Faber around 50 and a half, 51 and a half. I found 55 and a half on the score, and I just really like the under there. I think, as I touched on a little bit, I think he may not see league leading ice time with Jared Spurgeon coming back. And his ice time decreased a tiny bit as the season went on. His shot attempts per 60 decreased in the second half of last season, but his shots per 60 stayed the same. So that means he hit the net on way more percentage of his shot attempts, which was 54% in the second half of last season, way up from 38% to start the season. And D-men usually hover around 40% shots on goal per shot attempt. I'm expecting his on-ice stats to stay elite, his IPP to stay similar, and his shooting percentage to stay similar. And I think Faber will have a great year on power play one, but I can't see him clearing 55 points unless there's a huge development bump at age 22. And as a defenseman, I don't think I think they usually take a little longer to get to those elite status. So I have him projected for 50 points with 25 plus minutes a night, which I think is close to his ceiling. So I just really like the under for 55 and a half points.
Yeah, I actually like this one a fair bit. Yeah, I think he's probably going to get that top power play role, but even with that, like, I do have him for 3 minutes time on ice on the power play. That works out to 18.7 power play points for me, and I still have him at 49.8 total points. So yeah, if I'm 5+ points under the over-under line, then that feels pretty confident for me to take an under. And that's feeling like closer to a ceiling projection for me on Brock Faber. You go back to even to his University of Minnesota days, like his best season, his final season there, he had 27 points in 38 games. This is not a guy with some massive offensive pedigree going back through college. Sure, we get breakouts sometimes, but it's pretty rare to get a big one from this kind of profile, and it would be a pretty big breakout to clear 55.5. All right, moving on to Matthew Nyes.
Yeah. Before we move on to Matthew Nyes, I do want to
Sure.
also point out when you're taking unders, there's always a chance, or overs, there's always a chance the player gets injured and
Right.
he just doesn't play 82 games, and that'll bring his point totals down. In fantasy, we can kind of ignore that if you have IR plus,
Yeah.
stash him there, get a replacement player. You can't do that for your bets. So if you like the under, assuming he's going to play 82 games, like you're going to love the under knowing there's potential for missed time. So
Yeah.
just wanted to bring that point up. And in all of these over unders, there's always a chance they play 70 games, they play 60 games, maybe
Right.
72. Who knows?
Yep.
All right, Matthew Nyes, 48.5 points. This, I just think, is a huge expected jump in development and production. He had 35 points in 80 games last year, and his deployment was already great. He played with the Leafs stars plenty. He played with Matthews. He played with Nylander and Tavares. He played with Matthews and Marner. I don't think he's going to see any power play one time. And with the new coach, Craig Berube, like his deployment may even get worse. Berube may play him in a checking role, develop him a little more. Even if he does stay in the top six, he'll need to take a huge leap in shots on goal per 60 and IPP to get close to this number at all. The only way I see Nyes reaching 50 points is if he gets on the first power play unit, which, there would need to be multiple injuries to Leaf stars for that to happen. So, I know we're both unfortunate Leafs fans. We're praying that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this line too. I think it would have to be like everything breaks perfect. He breaks out. He stays in the right situation, the right line all year long. Um, yeah, would have to kind of be the perfect situation. I do think that like this is a player that I do think will score 50 points in the NHL in a season at some point. I'm just pretty unconvinced that it happens next year. They've paraded a lot of left wingers through Toronto in recent years, and it's not a big role. Like even Bertuzzi last year when he was going, like the results were good at even strength, but they still weren't like amazing for fantasy when he finally got going. I was just finally he's now usable rather than finally now he's amazing, right? So yeah, I think he definitely has to hit in a big way to clear 48.5. So I like that one.
Yeah, and Bertuzzi, when he was usable, he was getting a little bit of time on the first power play unit here and there, so
That's
it
true too.
was necessary.
Yep. All right, so my picks here, I took Pierre-Luc Dubois under 58.5 points. Did I take this pick solely to be able to rub it in Blake's face? Yes, that's pretty much it. But I also do actually think that Dubois is going to be a little bit in tough to get this one. I have Dubois projected for 50.7 points this year. And so, yeah, I'm getting just under 8 points difference to an under on this one here, and that feels really good. So, yeah, trusting my own projections there, plus getting a whole lot to an under. Like we talked about, there's always a chance of injury as well. So, putting that on my side in this case, I actually feel pretty confident about this one. I don't know how you can look at what Pierre-Luc Dubois has done over the last number of seasons and feel really confident that he's going to suddenly smash in Washington of all places. Yeah, that's just not a bet I'm willing to make. And so this line here feels like a pretty easy under for me.
Yeah, I really like it. I'm on this line personally, and I have him projected for 48 points. I think even if he's like, oh, third overall draft pick, even if he turns it up a bit and impresses us, I think he can't get 59 points unless Washington really changes as a team, and I don't see that happening.
Yeah. Next one, Tyler Toffoli, I have for under 30.5 goals. So I have Toffoli projected for 29.5, but I do feel that that's really close to ceiling for Toffoli in San Jose. I think that it's a good spot for him to do what he does, bomb shots and sit there on the power play and do what he does on the power play. But it feels like I'm really willing to take the under on a player going to a new situation on a really bad team where we don't even know for sure who he's going to play with at even strength. We assume that he's going to be on the top power play and be somewhat of a focal point given the money that they gave him. But it's still like a lot of things that have to go right for anybody to score 30 plus goals in San Jose next year. I'm just really willing to take the under on that.
Yeah, I am. I'm with you there. I think that this team is going to be garbage, even though they have some exciting new players. I think there's just not enough on ice stats, not enough people getting him the puck for some dangerous chances. I don't think he'll reach 30 at all. This line, I was fortunate enough to check some opening lines when they came out, and Toffoli was sitting at 32 and a half. So I hammered
Nice.
the under. I hammered the under there, but I would still place this bet too.
Nice. All right. The next one I had Timo Meyer over 58.5 points. Yeah, this one, um, even it being the over, I feel really confident in. I have Timo Meyer projected for 78.6 points, so I'm literally 20 points higher than this line in my base projection. Um, Tyler Toffoli, we just talked about, he's gone. There's really nobody else to challenge Meyer's power play time, in my opinion. Really, the only downside scenario I'm really seeing for Meyer this year is some sort of split power play, which, I mean, it could have been an option, but now we've got word that Luke Hughes is going to be out 6 to 8 weeks from this point onward. So early November, I believe, is the target date they're looking at for him to return. So it feels like Dougie Hamilton has to be your power play one quarterback. You don't have as good of a power play quarterback for a second unit. Sure, like Shimon Nevich could come in and be that guy maybe on a second unit, but it feels like they just lost a key piece to making a second unit viable. And so I really do think it's going to be a top power play probably all season long that Keefe will lean on pretty heavily the way that he did with his top unit in Toronto. And if that's the case, then yeah, Meyer should absolutely destroy this line, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I agree. The only thing that worries me is his injury history. He's missed a bit of games over the last few years. He missed 13 games last year, 4 games the year before, 5 games the year before. I think if he is anywhere in the mid 70 games played number, like he should still clear this number easily. So I'm happy to place this bet.
Yeah. If you know anything about me, it's that I will willingly fade the injury narrative. So that's not going to be something that bothers me too much. My fourth pick here, Andrei Svechnikov over 23.5 goals. I like literally double taked at this line when I saw it because this has to be just injury risk that the lines are putting in here because if Svechnikov is remotely healthy, he's absolutely going to clear this line. There's less people to compete with in Carolina. He has to be top power play. They literally have no one else to play there, in my opinion, who's remotely close to his talent level. So yeah, I would be absolutely gobsmacked if Svechnikov doesn't clear this line unless he misses like 20 plus games.
Yeah, and that's fair. The books are all saying he's gonna miss maybe 20 games with this line. So
Yeah.
so it's baked in. So it's really fine to take the over and hope he plays close to a full season.
Yeah. Yeah. If it's like I can understand, from the models why they might have something baked in, but when it really does feel like they're baking in like a significant injury, like I don't know how you can responsibly project a significant injury for a player where they're literally like missing a month of the season, just like out of the blue. We know we think he's healthy. We thought Luke Hughes was healthy before today too, so maybe I shouldn't say that too loudly, but yeah, I think as long as he's healthy for the majority of the season, we should get this one. Kind of the same thing for my next pick here. Mitch Marner over 90.5 points. Marner has paced well over this line every season for, I don't know, the past 5 or 6 seasons. I'd have to go back and do the math, but yeah, this has to be just injury because he has missed some time in recent seasons. I think that if he's healthy, there's absolutely no way that he doesn't clear 90.5 points. If you like the contract year kind of narrative around this, then he's got that going for him too. But yeah, there's no way in my mind that he doesn't clear 90.5.
Yeah, and again, it's another injury risk that the books are a little lower on. And yeah, we can debate the whether injuries are predictable. Maybe they are for certain players, and I don't know enough about Svechnikov's or Marner's injuries in the past to really decide. It makes me want to not place these bets, just like because I don't know what's going on with their bodies.
That's fair.
And last season, some of my biggest losses for the season-long bets, Jack Hughes. Jack Hughes, I was taking the overs, hammering the overs, and he played not enough games to get there. His
Yeah.
pace was there, but
Yeah.
he did not play enough games. Another one, which is not predictable at all, was Connor Bedard. I was on the overs for Bedard, but how can you predict Bedard's injury? That might be random, might be predictable, but I'm definitely a little scared of some injury risk.
Yeah. Fair enough. Let's keep rolling. There's alternative totals. So these are when you basically pick a player to eclipse a certain kind of plateau. So Ryan, take us through your picks here.
Yeah, and speaking of players with some injury risk, this is where I'll jump on board because
Right.
especially like for someone like Svechnikov, if they're saying 23 and a half goals, yeah, maybe they're assuming he plays 65 games for that line. If he does have a healthy season, he's gonna get 30 plus goals. So this is where like you can get plus money if you're really ignoring the injury narrative. So I'm doing that for Jack Eichel. He definitely has some injury narrative to him. I think his over-under lines are a little low, and I was enticed to take some of those, but I much prefer the alternative line of 40 plus goals with him. He had a 40 plus goal pace last season. That alone makes this line valuable, but he missed some time. What I really like is that he upped his shot attempts per 60 and his shots on goal per 60 in the second half of last season, really establishing himself as a premier shooter in the league, getting 4+ shots per game. I expect him to keep that up, especially without his line mate Jonathan Marchessault, who was a shooter himself. I think even if Eichel misses some games, he's going to get to that 40 goal point. I personally have him projected to play 74 games, baking in a bunch of injury risk, and I have him getting 41 goals. So I think at plus 600, 40 goals is extremely valuable. If he plays a full season, I think this is close to a lock. If he misses some games, I think he's still going to get it.
Nice. Yeah, I have Eichel projected for 38, so I'm pretty close to this, and yeah, getting that kind of plus money feels pretty good.
Yeah, and yeah, like my next pick, Connor McDavid. What can you say? Um, 140 plus points. He's probably has to play 82 games, but you gotta hop on and enjoy seeing one of the best ever to play hockey dominate this league. So this is a fun pick. I tend to go towards the more plus money, like higher than 225, but at 225, this is still a super fun and valuable pick. He paced for 142 last year, but he missed 6 games. He started slow, but which was still elite, but he finished
Yeah.
like a madman. He
Yeah.
finished with 75 points in his final 39 games. That's good for a 158 point pace. So yeah, this is just going to be super fun to watch Connor McDavid dominate, and had to jump on.
Yeah. I love that one. Yeah, getting plus money for McDavid to do what you would expect him to do in a healthy season, I think that feels pretty good to me too. I like this next one too a lot.
Yeah. I was pretty surprised at these odds. So plus 800 for Nikolai Ehlers to get 30 plus goals. That's an implied probability of 11%. So the books are saying there's only 11% chance that this happens. I think it's way more than 11%. So I'm on this. He's always crushed his rate stats, but he's been shafted into the middle six and second power play unit by his coaches. Maybe Scott Arnell will finally utilize him in a better way. If that happens, 3 years ago is a glimpse of what he can do. He was given 18 minutes of average time of ice, and he had a 37 goal pace. He has had some injuries in his career, but that's why we're going for the alternative totals for plus money. Also, last year, Ehlers had 0 goals on the power play. That's going to change. I actually have him getting power play 1 minutes. Fingers crossed. Who knows what the coaches do because
Yeah.
Ehlers is cursed. But yeah, like I think this is extremely valuable.
Yeah, I really like this line a lot. Probably just needs to get power play 1, and he gets this line. Yeah, that's literally the only thing standing in his way. I have him for 2 minutes 15 seconds power play time on ice because I'm very uncomfortable with projecting him like he's going to get the top power play when he hasn't for so long. That still comes out to 28.3 goals for me. So even if he doesn't get top power play for the whole season, I still think he could get 30 goals. If he does get top power play for the whole season, it feels like almost a lock. And at plus 800, yeah, you just got to love those odds. All right, my picks here. Tell me if I'm crazy, but I've got Tage Thompson, 40 plus goals at plus 340. I have him projected for, I think it was 42. I have to bring that back. But so I have him projected over this line. I'm getting plus money on it. I'm expecting Lindy Ruff to not submarine the entire team the way that Don Granato did last year towards the end of it. And Tage Thompson still had 21 points. His last 19 games finished the year on fire. I do believe the injury narrative that he's playing through something for the vast majority of the season. I do expect him to come out this year with something to prove. And I think 40 plus goals feels like a pretty good bet at plus 340.
Yeah, I love that pick. I'm on it as well, and I don't know how it's possible, but I am actually higher on Tage than you. I have him projected for 46 goals, and I may actually take a look at his 50 plus goal prop.
Yeah.
If it's plus 1,000 or more, I might sprinkle a little bit on there.
You can get plus 1,000 on DraftKings, according to what I'm looking at right now. So you can get a plus 1,000 for 50 on Tage Thompson. Yeah, that's an interesting point to make while we're here because Tage Thompson is one of those guys who does have like the absolute nuclear scenarios where he does hit those 50s. And yeah, to get big time plus money on some of those scenarios, I think is pretty valuable too. So there are some players like that I think it would be valuable to just like evaluate, hey, this is a guy who actually has like, like I did a show a while back about like players who could hit 100 points for the first time. These kind of guys who have these scenarios within their range of outcomes where they actually very reasonably can hit the ceiling and actually crack these big time plateaus and milestones. Tage Thompson, absolutely one of those guys. The other one I got here is Cole Caulfield to hit 40 plus goals. You can get plus 1,000 on MGM right now on Cole Caulfield to get 40 plus goals. And so, yeah, I have him projected for 40.4, so I'm right on this line. And yeah, to get plus 1,000 on something that I think is actually pretty decently likely if he stays healthy. Last year he was absolutely snake bitten the entire year. I do think Laine probably helps that power play a little bit. I'm not excited about Kirby Dach being on that power play. They got Laine, and I'm a little bit more excited about it. It will be interesting to see how those two fit because they both kind of have played similar spots on the power play before. But overall, I don't think that having more talent in that top six is going to be a detriment to Caulfield, and I think this is the year he finally pops.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I'm on this line as well, and plus 1,000 for something that is actually kind of likely in my mind.
Yeah.
Is really good value.
All right. And then lastly, I had to throw this in here. It might be wishful thinking. Actually, it's like almost certainly wishful thinking, but I have Matt Boldy to score 100 plus points. You can get this at plus 3,000. So obviously you're getting huge plus. It's a shoot the moon scenario for Matt Boldy. He has to take a step for sure. He has to play with Kaprizov all year. I do think the power play one is absolutely locked up. The power play has to click all year. Everything has to go right for anyone really to hit 100 plus points in any given season. But yeah, I had to throw my boy Matt Boldy in here, and yeah, at these odds, like it's a fun spot to get some money in.
Yeah, anything past plus 1,000 is super fun, and I am curious. When you were looking at this, did you go to your projections and be like, all right, what if I put a 17% shooting percentage? What? How does he get there? Did you do that?
No, I didn't go back in to do the actual math on how he could get there. I know for a fact that when I was doing my projections, I did a lot of exposure to Kaprizov at even strength, but it wasn't 100%. So I do still think there's some plus to give there. And then the other part of it is just Matt Boldy still being very young and still being an ascending talent. And then the third part is when the new coach there, why am I blanking on the name, got there at the end of last year, he played Kaprizov and Boldy specifically like to the bone. He was sending these guys out there for an insane amount of minutes. I don't think he does that for an entire season, but there is a scenario. I have Boldy projected for 19 minutes, 15 seconds average time on ice. I think there is a scenario where he skates 21 minutes a night, and then that's a huge bonus on top of the 83.4 points that I have him projected for. So I think there are definitely scenarios in which Boldy can hit this one. All right, let's get to the awards. Ryan, take us through your two picks here.
Yeah, so Austin Matthews, he is the clear favorite for the Rocket Richard. Won it last year, and the only way he loses it is if he misses time. It is tricky. Matthews does have an injury history, but the market is essentially saying there's a 57% chance he misses too much time to not win the trophy. And I'm happy to take those odds after he just played 81 games. There's really no other goal scorer in the game like him, and this line was similar to his 60-plus goal line, and I like this one better. If he gets 59 goals, I still think he wins the Rocket Richard.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this one a lot. Getting plus money on Matthews to win the Rocket Richard any year for the next like 5 years, I think you're probably going to be happy with that more often than not.
Yeah. And yeah, my next one is a goalie. It's UC Saros to win the Vezina at plus 1,500. The implied odds of that are 6%, and I just think that's too low for Saros, who's been consistently among the tops in goals saved above expected. And I think lately award voters tend to look at that stat a lot more than save percentage. So Saros has been in the Vezina discussion. He hasn't won one, and that alone, I think, can help him, go over the top if he's up against Hellebuck and they're close. Like, oh, Hellebuck won last year. Let's vote for Saros. And I think just Nashville gained a lot of strength on paper, and if he can bounce back to his normal self, where last year he had a down year, I think that could easily result in a Vezina trophy.
Nice. Yeah. Hard to argue with anything at plus 1,500. He's definitely got to be among the front runners. There's definitely a lot of unsure lines around the Vezina this year. It looks like nobody really a clear favorite, and makes a lot of sense. My picks here, I have Rasmus Dahlin for the Norris at plus 2,000. I've been on Dahlin this offseason. I think he's probably a top 3 all-around actual NHL defenseman in the game. And so I do think that he will get a Norris nod at some point. At plus 2,000 for him to get that this year, I think is well within the cards if Lindy Ruff is able to turn Buffalo around. If Dahlin is a big part of Buffalo getting back to the playoffs for the first time in a long time, I think that could sway some voters and we could see this one happen. The other one I have is Nikita Kucherov for the Rocket Richard. This is a little bit of a galaxy brain take for sure, but at plus 5,000, I thought it was a fun line. With Stamkos out of the way, I'm wondering if Kucherov does his best Artemi Panarin impression and just starts hammering pucks. If anyone can change their game and just become like a goal scorer overnight, the way that, McDavid had that one year where he did that. Crosby has done this early in his career. He kind of changed his game one year and won the Rocket Richard. So I think Kucherov, if we're going to bet on anybody to absolutely change their game and take home a Rocket Richard, probably Matthews has to get injured for this one to hit, but still, plus 5,000, I just think it's a fun line.
Yeah, for sure. Super fun.
All right, last up, Stanley Cup winner. Ryan, who's your pick?
Yeah, this is not my pick. This is my pick at these odds, by the way.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, I really like Carolina. I found them at plus 1,600, which were the 9th best odds. And Carolina definitely got worse this offseason, but it's their system. Rob Brudner just makes them dominate play. And in the playoffs, they dominated play throughout almost every game. Even in their losses to the Rangers, they were out shooting the Rangers. And I think, you just need to not get unlucky in the playoffs to have that strong system take you to a cup. So I really like Carolina at plus 1,600.
Nice. Yeah, I'm scared about this one, just given the offseason that they had and not knowing how that's all going to shake out. But yeah, plus 1,600, you can definitely do worse. My pick is Dallas, plus 1,100 here. Honestly, I would consider them the front runner. Like, they would be my cup pick at this point in the year. And so at plus 1,100, I mean, picking the Stanley Cup winner this time of year is obviously a bit of a fool's errand. But yeah, to get this kind of plus money on a team that I think should be at least in the conference finals once again, I'll definitely take that.
Yeah, and I want to say this is the only pick of the episode that I haven't actually placed money on. The Stanley Cup, I tend to wait until the season goes on, see if there's really value there. Last year, Edmonton, after their losing streak, they were at like plus 3,500. Placed that bet, they didn't win, but there was a lot of value.
Yeah, you were sweating that one till the end for sure. Yeah. All right. I know you gotta head out of here, Ryan, but I did want to shout out, you gave us this awesome sheet that yourself, myself, Blake, Josh, and Mark Barber, 18 Skaters, all did. You gave us a bunch of prop lines, and we all took overs or unders. We also did the shots on goal season leader and the average time on ice leader. So yeah, I think this is a really fun exercise. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take this screenshot here and I'm going to pin it up in the Discord in the betting section, and we'll leave it up there all year long. And then we'll see, we'll keep tabs on this one, who came out the top. If you want to see it and you want to roast Blake's picks, then come to the Apples and Ginos Discord, and it'll be pinned up in the bets section, bets channel that we have in there. All right, this was awesome. Thanks so much for coming on. Anything else you want to say? I want to give you a chance to plug what you're doing. I know you got a lot of good stuff going on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Super fun. I do want to just say, with these lines that we got the whole team to do, they're not necessarily the best lines. They're just lines I thought that we might get some different answers. So these aren't like the best bets, But yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Top Cheddar Fantasy. It's at Fantasy Cheddar on Twitter or X. I have made projections. Those can be available on Twitter. And throughout the season, I tend to post what I'm doing in the season with my bets. So you can follow along and see how I'm doing.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, that is going to be all that we got for this episode. Hopefully it brought you some value. I hope you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. Many thanks to the band there for supplying the music for the podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. That's it, folks. Much love.